Rebecca Hart sat in the third row of the Ed Sullivan Theater, hands folded in her lap, staring at nothing. Around her, the audience buzzed with anticipation, but she couldn't feel it. She'd spent the morning signing her resignation papers, 20 years as a hospice nurse, and in 3 days she'd walk away from it forever. Next to her, her best friend Sarah kept glancing over with concern. "You okay?" Rebecca nodded, but it was automatic. She'd been nodding for months now, going through motions, pretending the weight wasn't crushing her. Sarah had organized this. "You need to laugh," she'd said. "I can't remember the last time I heard you really laugh." Rebecca couldn't either. Laughter had become a foreign language she'd forgotten how to speak. The warm-up comedian was on stage, working the crowd. People were chuckling, clapping. Rebecca watched like she was behind glass. Comedy was happening, but she couldn't access it. Everything felt distant, muted, like the world had the volume turned down and she'd lost the remote. At 52, Rebecca had been a hospice nurse for 2 decades, 20 years of sitting beside dying people, holding hands that would soon go cold, listening to final words that would echo in her mind forever. 1 through 247 people. She'd counted. She had a list. Names, dates, final moments. Some nurses didn't keep track. Rebecca couldn't help it. Each death was a number, and the numbers had become unbearable. The lights dimmed. The band struck up. And David Letterman walked onto that stage with the easy confidence of someone who'd done this thousands of times. The audience exploded with applause and cheers. Rebecca clapped too, mechanically, her hands coming together, making sound but meaning nothing. David launched into his monologue. Political jokes, observations about city life, a bit about traffic. The audience laughed. Rebecca smiled at the appropriate moments, but nothing reached inside. Sarah leaned over. "He's funny, right?" "Yeah," Rebecca said. But the word felt hollow. 15 minutes into the show, David paused. He did this sometimes, Rebecca knew from watching at home. He'd stop the planned program and interact with the audience, asking questions, making connections. It was what made him different from other hosts. He saw people. "So," David said, walking to the edge of the stage, "I like to ask this sometimes. Has anyone here had a really tough year? I mean a really tough one." Hands went up around the theater. Job losses, health scares, relationship troubles. David picked a few people, let them share briefly, offered quips that acknowledged pain without minimizing it. Rebecca's hand stayed down. Her year wasn't tough. It was ending. There was a difference. But Sarah, without asking permission, reached over and lifted Rebecca's hand up. "Sarah, what are you—" Rebecca hissed. David's gaze landed on them. "Yes, third row. The woman who looks like she's about to kill her friend for raising her hand." The audience laughed. Rebecca felt heat rising to her face. Sarah whispered, "You need this. Trust me." David walked down the stage steps, microphone in hand, coming closer. "What's your name?" "Rebecca," she managed. "Rebecca, you weren't going to raise your hand, were you?" "No, sir." "But your friend there thought you should. Why's that?" Rebecca looked at Sarah, who nodded encouragement. The theater was quiet now, waiting. Rebecca felt 300 pairs of eyes on her. This was the opposite of what she needed. She needed to disappear, to fade away, to stop being seen. But then something broke. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the fact that she'd already quit, so what did it matter? Maybe it was the way David looked at her. Not with pity, but with genuine interest. "I'm a hospice nurse," Rebecca said, her voice quiet but carrying in the silence. "I've watched 1,247 people die. I counted, and I can't do it anymore. Friday is my last day. I'm quitting." The audience made a collective sound, not quite a gasp, more like an exhale. David's expression changed, not to sadness exactly, but to something deeper. Recognition. 1,247 people, he repeated slowly. "That's not just a number. That's 1,247 families, 1,247 stories, 1,247 endings." "Yes," Rebecca said. "Come up here," David said. not a request, an invitation that felt more like a lifeline. Rebecca climbed onto the stage on shaking legs. Under the lights, everything felt more real and less real at the same time. David guided her to the guest chair. She sat. "So," David said, settling into his chair behind the desk, 20 years, that's a long time to do one of the hardest jobs in the world. "It didn't feel hard at first, Rebecca said. At first, it felt like a calling. Being there for someone's final moments, making sure they weren't alone, giving families time to say goodbye. It felt sacred." "When did it change?" Rebecca thought about this. Gradually, then suddenly. Does that make sense? It's like you carry each death with you. You think you're putting them down, but you're not. You're just stacking them higher. And one day you realize you're carrying so much weight you can't move anymore. David nodded slowly. "What's the hardest part? Is it the dying itself?" "No," Rebecca said immediately. "Death is natural. It's going to happen. The hard part is the moment right before, when they realize it's really over, when they look at you like maybe you can save them. Like maybe if they hold your hand tight enough, they can stay, but you can't save them. You can only be there while they leave." The audience was silent. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was something else entirely. "Why did you come here tonight?" David asked gently. Rebecca gestured to Sarah in the audience. "My friends staged an intervention. They said I needed to laugh, that I'd forgotten how. And they were right. I can't remember the last time I really laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but real laughter, the kind that surprises you." "Do you want to remember?" David asked. "Or is laughter feeling disrespectful right now, like if you laugh, you're betraying all those people you couldn't save?" Rebecca's breath caught. "How did you know that?" "Because after 9/11, I felt the same way. Coming back to this show, making jokes, trying to make people laugh when so many people had just died, it felt obscene. I almost quit. I sat in my dressing room the night we came back on air and thought, what's the point of comedy when the world is burning? What changed your mind? Someone told me that laughter isn't disrespectful to the dead. It's necessary for the living. That in the darkest times, laughter is how we remember we're still human, still here, still capable of joy." Rebecca wiped her eyes. "But it feels so far away. Joy feels like something other people get to have." "Can I ask you something?" David leaned forward. "In 20 years, 1,247 deaths. Did any of them laugh at the end?" Rebecca blinked. The question caught her off guard. "Yes," she said slowly. "More than I would have thought." "Tell me about one." Rebecca closed her eyes, accessing memories she usually kept locked away. "Mr. Chen, last week. 83 years old, lung cancer. He knew he was dying. We all knew. And he looked at me and said, 'Nurse Rebecca, I have a question. When I get to heaven, will they have good Chinese food? Because the food here is terrible.'" A ripple of gentle laughter moved through the audience. Rebecca smiled, a real smile, for the first time in months. "I laughed so hard I cried," she continued, "and he smiled at me, this big, genuine smile, and then he closed his eyes. That was his last moment, making someone laugh, making me laugh." David sat back. "He gave you a gift." "He gave me permission," Rebecca said, the realization hitting her as she spoke. "Permission to laugh even when everything is sad. Permission to find joy in the darkest places. I'd forgotten that. I'd started thinking that joy was disrespectful, that laughing meant I didn't care about them. But Mr. Chen showed you different. He showed me that the last thing a human does, the very last choice they make, can be kindness, can be a joke, can be making someone else smile. He was dying, and he chose to make me laugh." David stood up, walked around his desk. "Ladies and gentlemen, Rebecca has spent 20 years giving people comfort in their final moments. She's been present for 1,247 deaths. She's held hands that were letting go. She's been witness to humanity at its most vulnerable. And tonight, I want to give her something back." He turned to the band. "Paul, Do you have something funny? Paul Schaffer grinned. Always. David looked at his producer in the wings. Change the rundown. For the next 20 minutes, this show is for Rebecca, and our only job is to make her laugh. Really laugh. The show transformed. The next guest came out, a comedian who'd been briefed backstage. He didn't do his normal tight five. Instead, he did a bit about his own mother, a nurse who'd worked in an ER for 30 years. The stories were funny and true and full of the kind of dark humor that medical professionals use to survive. Rebecca felt something loosening in her chest. A small laugh escaped, then a bigger one. David kept checking in. Was that funny? He'd ask, and Rebecca would nod, smiling wider each time. The band played a goofy song. David did a sketch with a guest that went deliberately wrong in ways that were absurd and silly. There was a bit with audience participation that ended with someone's wig falling off. And Rebecca laughed. Really laughed. The kind of laughter that starts in your belly and takes over your whole body. The kind that makes your face hurt. The kind that feels like release. During a commercial break, David came over and sat on the edge of the stage near her chair. How are you doing? I'm laughing, Rebecca said, wonder in her voice. I'm actually laughing. Good, David said, because here's what I want you to know. You said you're quitting Friday. Maybe you should. Maybe you need to, but maybe, and only maybe, after tonight, you'll remember why you started. You'll remember that even in the darkest work, there can be light. That laughter and grief aren't opposites. They're partners. I don't know if I can go back, Rebecca admitted. Then don't. But if you do it differently. Do it knowing that it's okay to laugh, that Mr. Chen wanted you to laugh, that all 1,147 of them would want you to keep living, keep finding joy, keep being human. The show came back from commercial. They did one more segment, and then it was time to close. David brought Rebecca back to center stage. Rebecca, you told me you've counted every death, 1,047. Have you counted anything else? Rebecca shook her head. Maybe you could start counting laughs, moments of unexpected joy, times when someone dying chose kindness over fear, times when you made someone's last day a little better. Because I bet if you counted those, the number would be even bigger. Rebecca nodded, crying again, but this time the tears felt different, lighter. You're about to leave this profession, David continued. You've given 20 years. That's enough. That's more than enough. But before you go, I want to say thank you. From everyone who's ever been afraid of dying. From everyone who's ever been grateful that someone was there at the end. You've been that person 247 times. That's not a burden. That's a legacy. The audience rose to their feet. But they didn't applaud. Instead, they stood in silence, showing respect in stillness, a standing ovation without sound. Rebecca understood. Some moments were too sacred for noise. After the show backstage, Sarah hugged her fiercely. You laughed, she said, tears in her eyes. Real laughs. I heard them. I know, Rebecca said. I felt them. David came by before leaving for the night. You okay? I don't know yet, Rebecca said honestly, but tonight helped. It really helped. What are you going to do? Rebecca thought about it. I'm still quitting. I need a break, but maybe I'll come back to it differently. Maybe I'll remember that it's not just about the dying, it's about the living that happens right up until the end. 3 months later, Rebecca did return to hospice work, but she did it part-time. She started a support group for hospice workers, focusing on preventing burnout. And she started a tradition, asking every patient to tell her something that made them laugh. She kept a new list. Names, dates, and what made them laugh. The list grew. Mr. Johnson, who told jokes about his ex-wife until the very end. Mrs. Patterson, who laughed at her own memorial service plans because she insisted on being buried in her bowling league t-shirt. Young Tommy, who made fart noises when his morphine drip made him goofy. Now 147 deaths. But now she was counting something else too. 247 laughs. More, actually. Because people laughed more than once if you gave them the chance. David kept in touch. Occasionally, Rebecca would send him updates. "Mr. Davis laughed today when I told him your joke about New York pizza," she wrote once. David wrote back, "Tell him I'm honored." A year after her appearance, Rebecca was invited back to the show. David wanted to do a follow-up. "How's the laugh counting going?" "I'm up to 1,523, Rebecca said, smiling. "Turns out people laugh a lot if you give them permission to, even at the end, especially at the end." "Why especially?" "Because at the end, all the pretense falls away. You stop worrying about being proper or strong or brave. You just are. And being yourself often means finding something, anything to laugh about. It's human nature. We're wired for joy, even when everything says we shouldn't be." "That's beautiful," David said. "It's also exhausting," Rebecca admitted, "but it's worth it. Mr. Chen taught me that. He used his last breath to make me laugh. That's not tragedy. That's grace." The episode aired, and this time Rebecca watched it from home. She saw herself laughing, really laughing under those bright lights. She saw David's genuine care. She saw the audience responding not with pity, but with recognition. And she understood something new. Her 20 years hadn't been spent watching people die. They'd been spent witnessing people live, all the way until the very last moment. And if they could find laughter in those final hours, then she could find laughter in the hours she still had ahead. The next day at work, she walked into Mr. Thompson's room. He was in his final week, maybe his final days. His family had gone home to rest. "Mr. Thompson," Rebecca said, settling into the chair beside his bed, "I have a question for you. What's the funniest thing that ever happened to you?" His eyes, cloudy with pain medication, focused on her. "You want to know what's funny? Now? Especially now," Rebecca said. He thought about it, then a smile cracked across his weathered face. 4th of July, 1982. "I tried to impress my wife by lighting a bottle rocket. Held it too long, burned off my eyebrow, looked ridiculous for 3 months." Rebecca laughed. Mr. Thompson laughed too, which turned into a cough, but when he recovered, he was still smiling. "I thank you," Rebecca said. "For what?" "For laughing with me, for choosing joy, for reminding me why this work matters." Mr. Thompson squeezed her hand weakly. "Nurse Rebecca, if I'm going to die, and we both know I am, I want my last days to have some laughter in them. Otherwise, what's the point?" "What's the point indeed?" Rebecca said. She stayed with him another hour, trading stories, finding moments of lightness in the heavy reality. When she left, she added him to her list. "Mr. Thompson, bottle rocket eyebrow, 1982. That night, Rebecca went home and did something she hadn't done in years. She watched comedy, not The Late Show, though she'd watch that tomorrow, but a stand-up special. And she laughed. Freely, without guilt, because Mr. Chen had given her permission. David had reminded her why it mattered. And 1,247 people had shown her that death and laughter weren't enemies. They were the bookends of being human. And in between those bookends, there was nothing more important than choosing joy whenever possible, for as long as possible, even, especially, at the end. The hospice nurse who'd forgotten how to laugh had remembered, and in remembering, she'd found her way back to herself, back to the work, back to the belief that in our darkest moments, laughter isn't disrespectful. It's survival. It's defiance. It's the most human thing we can do. That night on The Late Show had changed her, not by fixing her or curing her burnout, but by reminding her that she was allowed to be human too, allowed to laugh while people died, allowed to find joy in the midst of grief. Because if dying people could laugh, then so could she. And that made all the difference.